She had to leave Foča in the middle of the night when attacks by bands of Serb paramilitary soldiers became too frightening. And then she had to sneak from one safe village to the next, never in a direct line, avoiding roads, walking through forests and mountains, sneaking past Serb villages, occasionally being shot at. She was on Bosnia's underground railroad, and it was a rough ride. She could rest for no more than a day at safe villages because other refugees were arriving and food was running out. I asked how long it took to get from Foča to Split. 45 days, she said. Excuse me? 45 days. You have been walking for 45 days? Yes, but only at night. It was too dangerous to walk during the day. I wrote it down in my notebook, but I didn't believe it. How could she have been on the run with 2 children for 45 days? During World War II, people wandered for that long, even longer, but Bosnia's war was a small-time affair. A few people killed, a few thousand refugees. It would be over in a couple of months, when the politicians would come to their senses again. She wasn't marching from Russia to Poland. The year was 1992, not 1942. And Bosnia had smooth roads and fast cars with anti-lock braking systems and double overhead cam engines. What was going on? I looked at Munevera's feet for an answer. She was wearing a pair of blue snow boots. They had been the best thing to put over her feet when she fled into mountains still covered with snow. She had run for so long that by the time she arrived in Split in late May, the seasons had changed. It was 72 degrees outside. I was wearing a T-shirt, and she was wearing snow boots, her only shoes. Munevera had been cleansed. That word, cleansed, had not yet entered the American vocabulary. It was a learning process, and I was at the start of it. Like an infant trying to speak, you had to learn the building blocks of cleansing before you could understand its meaning. First the syllables, then the word, articles of speech, then grammar. So you had to learn about mass arrests, torture, rapes and expulsions, and you needed to understand that it was a system rather than a series of random incidents. Then you could understand what cleansing meant. It took time. You digested the patterns reluctantly rather than intuitively, because it made no sense that Europe was falling into madness again at the end of the 20th century. When I met Munevera, I was struggling with the ABCs of atrocities. During the interview, Munevera said Muslim and Croat men were rounded up in Foča and put into a concentration camp on the town's outskirts. Her words, not mine. I wrote down the words and forgot about them. Concentration camps were a Nazi invention, and in 1945 we buried the machine that created them. Munevera was being hysterical. Munevera spoke of a girl who lived next door, 17 years old, who was dragged off by Serb soldiers one day and dumped back at home a few days later, bleeding from her groin. She had been raped an unimaginable number of times, Munevera said, and she died at home. I jotted it down. Munevera was being hysterical. Attack helicopters of the Yugoslav National Army floated in the air over Foča, directing artillery shots and strafing houses below with machine gun fire, she said. I jotted it down. Munevera was being hysterical. I tried to call a friend in Foča today, Munevera said. She stayed behind. I told her not to. When I called, a strange man answered the phone. I asked for my friend, and he said, "This is a Serb apartment now." I felt a tug at my sleeve. "Hey, mister, come here. This man, my cousin, he had 7 brothers killed." My visit was turning into a freak show. I couldn't refuse to see the next exhibit, free of charge, satisfaction guaranteed. The guy with 7 dead brothers. I said goodbye to Munevera and her sorrows, and moved over to the next blanket. A farmer named Adem sat in the corner, hunched over, face toward the ground. His cousin, the one who lured me over,